Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Liv. If you're new here, I post about lifestyle interiors, but in this video I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different. So I posted a few weeks ago now on my TikTok about being a very sensitive person and things that I've had to accept as someone who is very sensitive, and it sparked a lot of conversation. A lot of people said they related, and I thought it might be interesting to do a bit of a longer video on that. I first just want to say I have not been or kind of looked into being diagnosed as anything neurodivergent. There were quite a lot of people reaching out just saying like maybe it's a good idea to kind of look at assessments and things like that, but I just want to give my 2 cents on what I call myself as being like a very sensitive person. I have actually made some notes on my little phone about this and the kind of things that I want to cover. So I'm basically just going to get into it. This is kind of like an uncomfortable video for me, and I don't know why. It feels like I'm being kind of like vulnerable, I guess, and it kind of feels weird, but I thought I'd share it in the hopes that maybe someone will relate to it, someone will feel like they're a little bit seen by this video and they feel a little bit more understood. And I also just want to premise this by saying that I hope this isn't too me and about me and oh my life's so hard. I really don't want it to be like that. I just thought I would kind of share these things. I don't want it to be like a woe me situation, because I actually really like myself. It's taken me a long time to get there. I just thought these things would be interesting to share. Anyway, let's just get into it, otherwise I'm probably never gonna make this video. Also, if this video is posted, then, you know, we've got to a good point, because I feel like I might make this video and then sit on it for a few weeks, but I hope this is live and I hope you're actually seeing this. So let's start off with the first one that I've learned to get really comfortable with, is that I feel emotions really, really deeply. So I'm not saying like it's like up and down very quickly, but I'm saying that if I'm like up here, I'm like on top of the world, like life is so beautiful and life is so wonderful. And if I'm down here, it's like I find it quite difficult to see out of that moment, and everything just feels very dark and very intense. And yeah, it's just I feel things on like a very extreme level, which obviously can be great sometimes when you are really happy and really grateful and you feel very like overwhelmed by the happiness that's in your life. But then alternatively, obviously it's quite difficult when you are not in a good place. And I think I can kind of hang around in that place where I'm not feeling great for a little while, because it's quite difficult to see out of it, and I feel it like physically feels quite heavy. So that's the first one. I don't actually want to talk too much about that because I feel like that's quite general. Most people feel things pretty deeply, but yeah, I just kind of I want to like highlight that, I guess, because it's quite intense. Like anything I feel is quite intense, which, like I say, has its upsides and its downsides. Like a lot of these things, these are not all like negatives. It's just things that I've learned to accept about how my brain works and how I kind of operate, I guess. So the second thing is I often feel quite overstimulated by other people's emotions. So this, I guess you would kind of call like empathy, and I don't want to be like I'm so empathetic, you know, there's people like I'm just so empathetic, like I just can't take your stuff on. I don't want to be like that. I'm not saying that, but I do feel like I feel like very connected to how other people feel. So for example, like I find it quite hard to like detach from other people's emotions. So if someone around me is having a difficult time, I'll like take that on, and then I'll like take on their emotions. I think a lot of people have this, but normally, and I hate to use the word normal, but people can kind of detach and be like, well, that's their thing. This isn't how I feel. For me, it's quite difficult to do that. Like, yeah, I just get quite easily led by people's emotions, which in the past, I think in hindsight, has kind of caused problems, because a lot of the time it's not how I feel, it's how someone else feels, and then I get into that. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I'm like rambling and that didn't actually make sense, but yeah, I just feel quite connected to how people feel. It's just important to be aware of that. Like, it's something that I'm much more aware of now. Sorry, I had a throat. issue. But yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that I'm very aware of now. So I make like a conscious effort to detach myself from things, or just kind of realize it. I don't necessarily need to be like, I'm not taking this on, but I need to be like, okay, Liv, like, is that how you feel, or is that how other people feel, and you've just kind of been led by that? Okay, the next one is that I overthink constantly. Like my partner said to me a few weeks ago, he was like, it must be exhausting to be you. Just because my brain will go 100 million miles an hour, and this doesn't have to be like emotional, it can just be like, I just go from like watching the TV to talking about crocodiles to thinking about what I need to do tomorrow. Like, it's just relentless. It just never stops. There's no like time where I'm like, do you know what? I feel nothing. It's like I just get so stimulated by everything, whether that's like future thoughts or like the situation I'm in or past experiences or whatever. Like, it's constantly running around in my head, and I find it very difficult to like quiet my inner monologue, I guess. I didn't realise as well, side note, a lot of people don't have an inner monologue, which blew my mind, because I was like, how are you not thinking about 10, 100 million things at the same time? But that's a sign, I think, of like ADHD. So potentially that's something that I will look into. I haven't really looked into any of those things that much, to be honest, but I know that like people with ADHD have come to me and been like, oh, same, like that's how my brain works, like it's 15 thoughts at the same time, so it's quite hard to focus on one thing. But yeah, it's just a constant noise and like bombardment from the moment I wake up to when I go to bed. And obviously you can do like mindful practices and things like that. I personally used to be very like hippy dippy, and I feel like that's not said in a mean way, but I used to be quite that way. I don't know if it did help with that. I think it helped with like stress and management and things like that. I think what works for me is if I actually use like a distraction. I don't know if this is like the healthiest thing, but if I'm like overthinking like constantly, yeah, there are two main things that I do, and this is not being preachy. Like, if you feel like this, probably best to speak to someone that actually knows what they're talking about, but I just want to share what kind of works for me. So the first thing is like exercise. So this kind of used to be going to the gym for me. I guess not so much anymore because I don't go like crazy in the gym. So for me now it's running, because I literally have to focus on moving my body and being able to breathe. So it kind of stops, it has to stop that thought. Like, for me to continue on a run, I can't be thinking about 15 million things. I literally need to be like, can I breathe? The second thing is that one thing that really helps me is I know that if I have a bath and I read a book, even if it's like for 20 minutes, it really quietens down my mind. So it could be obviously anything, it could be like gardening or painting or whatever for you. But I think as long as you know like your activity, so when I feel like very like, it's like not stopping, I'm just gonna have a little bath. Like, I think it's a nice way. It's kind of why I bath so often. It's just like a nice little thing that I know will help me feel a little bit more calm. Okay, the next one is that some people just won't get you. And obviously this is like worldwide, this isn't just sensitive people. I think sometimes being overly sensitive can make you feel like a bit of a freak, because I'll like look at a painting or like a sunset and I'll be like, wow, doesn't that just make you feel, man? Like, it's like too much, you know? And people be like, no, what do you mean, it's just painting? Or like, oh, it's just sunset. And that's completely fine. That they don't really understand why you think like that, but it can make you feel a bit like otherly, I guess, because it's like, well, why are you being like that? And also it's this classic like old tale, isn't it, of when you were growing up, you were told like, oh, stop being so sensitive, or like, oh, why do you think that, or like, why are you being like that? I would never think that. And sometimes it can make you feel a little bit alone in your thoughts. So I think it's really useful to find people like you. My mum is very, very similar to me in the way that her brain works. So I literally spend time with her probably like every day, just to feel like, okay, like you get me, you get how fast I talk or how I feel about certain things, or there's just like an understanding there. So I think it can help to find like your people or your person who really properly gets your brain, because I do think it can make you feel like a little bit of like a freak deeply sometimes about things that other people just don't really care about. The next one is that it's really hard for me to take criticism. I feel like if anyone criticises me, it's like a personal attack. Like I just find it really hard to take on criticism. I know a lot of people do, but yeah, I personalise everything. So even if it's like at work and it's like constructive criticism, I will feel like it's a personal attack that's being made on me and my personality and who I am, which is crazy. But it's just, I do get really like overly sensitive about those kind of things. So it's not that I need people to like consistently hype me up, not at all, but it's quite hard when someone does criticise you to not be like, oh, they hate me. So that's something that I'm actively working on getting better at, because obviously criticism is so useful. You should be able to be criticised. I just think sometimes it can be quite difficult. The next one, we're nearly at the end, promise, is that I over-romanticise everything. And this isn't really a problem, because obviously it's nice to like romanticise your life and romanticise, like, I don't know, just little things. Hello, darling. Obviously it's nice to like romanticise your life and little things, but it can obviously it's nice to like romanticize your life, and that can be really useful, especially when it comes to like being grateful for little things. But the issue in this is, for me, is that I set expectations that are overly romantic about every single situation. And when I say romantic as well, I don't mean like romantic love. I just mean that I just tend to romanticize things. So even if like me and my partner plan to go for a coffee, I'll be like, okay, so I've already planned out like what this coffee's going to be like, and we're going to sit there and we're going to talk about this, and it's going to be so lovely. And then like we'll go somewhere, the queue will be huge, we won't be able to get a coffee there, and I'll get really frustrated because it didn't meet my expectation. So this can be really difficult to deal with. I find it quite difficult to deal with, because it's like real life doesn't align with your expectations. A lot of the time as well, I just romanticize like the world and people and things like that, and then when obviously something bad happens, or someone shows you, or a situation kind of appears and shows you that the world is not, you know, rainbows and unicorns, that can be quite difficult to take on. And I find it like a little bit soul crushing, which is ridiculous, because obviously you can't set expectations for life. So I'm working on actively not doing that and just appreciating the moment, whatever happens. Because ultimately, setting expectations, you might never get that expectation like actually realised, and it is just like you're disappointing yourself. Like, you're not disappointing anyone else, it's like in your own brain, it's disappointing. The final thing is that I need to spend a lot of time alone, just because of pretty much everything I have just listed. I need to spend a lot of time on my own to recharge. I think I used to think that I was very extroverted, and in certain situations I am, but I actually am generally quite an introverted person. I need time to like process my thoughts and do my little activities that make me feel better, and just kind of sit and just be by myself, whether it's like doing this, like making silly little videos, or reading, or doing some gardening or whatever. I just often need to be alone. And I think there's this kind of like culture now, maybe not now, maybe it's always been there, but where it's like you have to be out and doing things and with friends and constantly surrounded by people. And actually I find that quite difficult. I think mainly that's because like I said earlier, kind of take on everything else, so it does feel quite overstimulating if I'm with people all the time. But yeah, I just have to be alone. I just think it's something that I actually really enjoy about myself, that I love being by myself, and my life, I guess, kind of allows me to spend a lot of time by myself, which is wonderful. So yeah, I don't know, that's something that I just really need for like rest and like to rejuvenate and to just be able to face the world properly, is to spend a lot of time by myself. I feel like there's so much more to say, but again, I don't want to be too much like me, and I don't want you to think that I'm making this video to be like but it's more just, I know that a lot of people related to that video. I had quite a lot of people reach out to me, comment on the TikTok, just being like, oh my God, I feel the same. Like, I feel like we're the same person. I've always found this really difficult to deal with. So I just thought I'd make a bit of a longer video on it. I really hope that, like, whoever you are, however you feel, however deeply you feel, that you do feel like you have a place to go, or someone to speak to. Just realizing that in yourself and kind of coming to a place of acceptance, because I think for so long I really struggled with being quite sensitive. And again, like, I think it's that thing, isn't it, of like, oh, you're being too sensitive, and we're kind of all supposed to put on this front of like, oh, like, don't be too deep, or like, don't think about that too much. And when your brain like feels like that, you can't really stop yourself from being like that. Anyway, yeah, I feel like I'm rambling now, but I really hope this video potentially resonated with you. If it didn't, I'm sorry that I've just rambled for 18 minutes. Hopefully you clicked off before then. But yeah, if it did resonate with you, do let me know. And I really hope you're, you know, doing well. And we can all just learn to accept ourselves for how we like operate. And I think it's actually a beautiful thing to feel deeply. I definitely wouldn't have it any other way. It's just sometimes these things can be a bit testing until you, I guess, learn to accept them and accept yourself. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna go now. If you are interested in my YouTube channel and videos and all of that stuff, please do subscribe, and all of my social links and everything are in the description below. All right, bye.